exhibit that I'm showing you. It's Alberto Alvarez's statement. Is that what you're talking about that you saw?
Yes. This is, let me just take a quick look. But this looks familiar. Yes. This is what I was referring to.
Did you review anything else about Alberto Alvarez? Any police officer notes?
No, this is what I reviewed at Alberto.
Did you know that the
name... Something else?
Wait a minute.
Let me say that's all that I recall right now. If there was something else in the large packet of things about Mr. Alvarez, I don't recall it right now. I cannot absolutely say that there wasn't. I've reviewed a lot of documents. But that is the one on which I based the statement.
You based your statement, your report, not only on Alberto Alvarez's statement, though, right?
Correct.
You based it on your assumption that Alberto Alvarez was telling the truth.
Yes.
And so you demonstrate to the jury this bottle propped up in a bag yesterday. You remember doing that?
Yes.
And you said, you've testified that you've never seen anyone do that before, right?
Not propped up in that manner.
And prior to Mr. Walgren popping the hanging tab on the vial, you know that that had never been done to that bottle. That hanging tab had not been pulled out. You know that, right?
We've stipulated that, Your Honor.
Well, whether he knows it or not.
Facts, not evidence. There's speculation on this witness's part.
Don't, hold on, please. Neither counsel should be making speaking objections. We've been through this before. The objection is overruled. You can frame the question and address it to Dr. Shafer. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Do you understand the question? Do you want me to repeat it?
Please repeat.
The propofol bottle that you used yesterday for your demonstration had a hanging tab on it, right?
That is correct.
And you hung it from the stand for the jury to see.
Correct.
And when you did that, thanks to gravity, you were able to infuse some propofol from that bottle. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, People's 30, which is the propofol bottle that was found at the scene, prior to Mr. Walgren popping it up in court yesterday, you know that that tab had not been opened or manipulated at all.
No, I don't know that.
Well, we stipulated to that. Would that surprise you?
I know you stipulated to it, but...
No, it's a fact. It's a fact. It's a stipulated fact, Doctor. Are you about to dispute that?
You can't tell me what I know.
Are you disputing?
I don't know that.
Well, he's saying you should assume that that's the
fine.
correct statement.
I'll take it as given value, but I can't. But he's saying I know it, and may I explain that?
No, you don't have to. Just listen carefully to the question.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Which is based upon fact.
Okay,
go ahead, please.
So your analysis yesterday, your description yesterday of what you said Dr. Murray did.
Yes.
Was not to hang the bottle from the IV stand. You didn't testify he did that, right? Right?
The bottle was clearly
Did you,
Doctor?
To answer.
No, well, no, for yes or no.
It's yes or no.
Partial answer stricken. Disregard. We asked.
Did you testify to that or didn't you?
Repeat the question.
You got to repeat the whole question.
All right. In your testimony yesterday, you did not demonstrate or tell the jury that Dr. Murray used a tab on People's 30, right?
I did not speak of it one way or the other. I did not consider it relevant.
You showed them, Dr. Murray, or demonstrated to them Dr. Murray putting a bottle of propofol into an IV bag and propping it up in there, right?
Yes. I didn't show them him. I showed them me doing that.
And then testify that's what you think happened.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
So under your analysis, Dr. Murray would have taken an IV bag, right?
Yes.
Cut a hole like you did with your IV bag,
For the bag we found.
gone through the mechanism of putting that propofol bottle in the IV bag,
Yes.
right? Propping it up,
Yes.
and then infusing it that way, to going through all those steps.
Yes.
You find that reasonable to assume?
Yes.
You know, you made a statement yesterday, or days run together, it might have been the day before yesterday, that it is not a good idea for a scientist to make bold predictions or bold grand statements, I believe you said, something like that, referring to that propofol sleep study, without sufficient evidence. Do you remember saying that?
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof.
And you certainly do consider that what you have claimed occurred in this case is an extraordinary claim.
Not at all.
You understand that Dr. Murray is literally on trial for his life.
When counsel's testifying.
Sustained. It's argumentative as well. We ask the question, please.
Can I have a second, Judge?
You may.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, as I instructed you at the very beginning of the trial, am instructing you now and will instruct you at the end of the case. The statements or questions of the attorneys are not evidence. They have absolutely no meaning unless there's an answer. It's the answer that's the evidence in this case. So we've been through this, and please understand and accept these renewed admonitions. Thank you. Mr. Chernoff?
You understand this is a criminal trial.
Yes.
It's not malpractice.
Yes.
Overruled.
You said that you don't charge for malpractice cases
Correct.
in the last 10 years.
Correct.
And you have testified in numerous malpractice cases. Is that right?
Incorrect.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us how many you've testified in?
Just one.
Okay. So in in one case, in 10 years, you didn't charge.
Incorrect.
The case that you're referring to was 10 years ago you testified in?
Yes, I've consulted about twice a year since then.
But the case was 10 years ago.
But the actual case in which I testified in court was 10 years ago.
And there was a doctor on the other side named Dr. Katz. Is that
Correct.
right? You didn't like him very much.
Correct.
And you agreed to testify for free in that case.
Correct.
Now, let's go over a little bit, if you'll just bear with me, about on your CV,
Sure.
which is so big it's hard to get through. Where's CV? There it is. Just a second, Judge. I'm trying to
Please.
find it. No, you think that's one thing I'd have. I'm sorry. Do you have an extra copy?
I can let you read it off my laptop if you want. Sure, I can. I can email it to you.
You went to medical school in Stanford, is that right?
That's correct.
It's a very good institution, would you agree?
Yes, I would.
At the time you went, it was in 1978, is that correct?
Through 1983.
And you were you had mentioned that you were never a student of Dr. Paul White. Is that what you testified to?
He was a member of the faculty, and I was a student at Stanford, but that does not make me a student of Dr. White's.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just asking, is that what you said?
Yes.
Nobody's arguing. There was
Yeah,
a question and then there was an answer.
Yeah. So you went to Stanford Medical School.
Correct.
Dr. Paul White was a professor there.
Incorrect. He was one of about 20 assistant professors in the Department of Anesthesia.
Okay, he was an assistant professor.
Correct.
And anesthesia was something that you became interested in during medical school.
That's correct.
Your testimony was that your first published paper where you were named, and the published paper was in 1988, is that right?
I have to pull my own CV. Give me a moment here. I had papers before that, but they were published at meetings and things like this, and I eventually, because I didn't consider them peer-reviewed, took them off the list. So let me just pull my own CV, if I may. Actually, it'd be easier to do it. Just a second here. Well, I believe my computer's deciding to spend time with me for the internet connection.
You want to
I'll be back
show-
in a moment. I believe my first paper is something called Testing Computer Controlled. Here it is, yes. There are several papers in 1988, including a paper of Dr. White's, and a paper with Dr. Jim Scott, and a paper with two papers with Dr. Jim Scott. So there are three papers in 1988, one with Professor White and two with Professor Scott.
Well, the one in 1988 with Professor White, what was your involvement in that paper?
I did the computer programming and also the mathematics for the three-compartment model, which requires a rather more complex mathematics than for a two-compartment model. The actual modeling was done by my first wife, Audrey Shafer.
Now we're going to get back to that paper, but I want to go. We're going to get to that paper. I want to go back to 1978.
Sure.
After medical school, you went for residency. You went to a residency program
Correct.
at University of Pennsylvania.
That's correct.
And prior to going to that residency program, because of your interest in anesthesia, you and I'm going to call her Audrey because I don't know her last name. What's her last name?
Audrey Shafer.
Okay. Your first, what was it? Is that your
That's my first wife, Audrey
first wife,
Shafer.
Audrey Shafer? You and Audrey both had conversations with Dr. White about your residency program.
I'm sure we did.
You had a relationship with Dr. White.
Yes.
And partly because of those conversations, and partly for other reasons, logistics, you went to another very good school, University of Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
Is that right?
That's correct.
And there you studied anesthesia.
I was a medical intern and then an anesthesia resident.
Okay. After University of Pennsylvania, you went back to Stanford,
Correct.
and so did Audrey Shafer.
Correct.
And it was that about 1986?
That's correct,
Is that right?
1986.
All right. And it was during that time that Ms. Audrey Shafer and you were involved in some of the research that was involved in the paper that eventually was published in